Before there were maps, there were people who simply went. The Polynesians read stars and currents with a precision modern instruments still struggle to explain. The Phoenicians sailed out of sight of land for months at a time. Greek scholars reached Britain and came home with descriptions no one believed. Chinese monks walked across mountain ranges that would kill most people today just to find books. These early explorers had no precedent, no charts, and no safety net. They left the known world behind, not because they were fearless, but because something beyond the horizon mattered more than the fear of never coming back. While medieval Europe looked inward, others were quietly connecting the world. Vikings crossed the North Atlantic in open boats, using nothing but the stars, the color of the water, and the flight paths of birds. Arab scholars compiled knowledge from 3 continents. Chinese monks spent years crossing deserts and mountain ranges on foot to bring back wisdom no one in their homeland had ever read. And when Zheng He launched his treasure fleet, the sheer scale of it made every European navy of the time look like a collection of fishing boats. The world was always larger than any single civilization imagined. In a single generation, the world European mapmakers knew was replaced by something twice as large. Portugal sent ships south and east. Spain sent them west. Within 50 years, the outlines of 2 entire continents had appeared on maps that had no space for them before. Men who had never seen the Americas landed on its shores and kept walking. Down rivers no one in Europe knew existed. Across deserts in search of cities made of gold. Some found more than gold. Some found their deaths. None found exactly what they were looking for. And that, in a strange way, was the whole point. After the continents were found, the obsession shifted to the passages between them. The Northwest Passage, a sea route above the Americas, defeated explorers for over 3 centuries. Ships were crushed. Crews froze to death in harbors they mistook for shelter. Mutinies happened, and still they came. England, the Netherlands, France. Each sent expedition after expedition into waters no one had returned from to describe. These were not men who calculated odds. They were men who believed so completely in what might be on the other side that they were willing to pay any price to find out. By the 18th century, exploration had changed its nature. The goal was no longer simply to find, it was to understand. Ships now carried botanists, astronomers, and artists alongside their navigators. Cook didn't just map coastlines, he cataloged the life around them. Humboldt didn't just cross the Andes, he invented the very idea of ecology while doing it. These were men who understood, for the first time, that everything was connected. Climate to altitude, species to habitat, ocean currents to weather. The world didn't just get larger in this era, it got more legible. By the early 19th century, the coastlines of the world were mostly mapped. The interiors were not. Australia was circumnavigated and named. The source of the Nile was still unknown. Antarctica existed only as a rumor until ships finally pushed south far enough to see it. And what they found was not a continent anyone had imagined. At the same time, the American West was being crossed, cataloged, and drawn for the first time. These expeditions produced something the earlier ones rarely had: data. Not just accounts of adventure, but measurements, specimens, and maps precise enough to be used a century later. The second half of the 19th century sent explorers into the last great blank spaces on the map: the African interior, the source of the Nile, the Sahara, the high passes of Central Asia. These journeys were brutal in a way the maritime expeditions never quite were. Weeks of fever, no resupply, no rescue if something went wrong. The men who survived came back changed. The ones who didn't became legends. And underneath every flag planted and every river traced, there was a quieter achievement: the first accurate scientific picture of the natural world at its most remote and least forgiving. The heroic age of exploration had one remaining prize: the poles. Everything else had been reached, named, and mapped. The Arctic and Antarctic were the last places on Earth where no human being had ever stood. What followed was a decade of extraordinary endurance. Men deliberately sailing into conditions that should have killed them, surviving Antarctic winters in total darkness, dragging sledges across ice fields that offered nothing in return. The reward wasn't resources or trade routes. It was simply the knowledge of having been the first. That alone was considered worth dying for. And for a remarkable number of these men, that is exactly what it cost. The 20th century gave exploration its first machines. Airplanes crossed oceans in hours that had taken months by sea. Balloons reached altitudes where the sky turned dark. Submarines went deeper than any diver could survive. What had once required years of travel could now be accomplished in days. But the instinct behind it hadn't changed. Lindbergh flew the Atlantic alone, not because it was practical, but because it hadn't been done. Hillary and Norgay climbed Everest, not because there was anything useful at the top. The machine age made exploration faster and more precise, but it never made it less human. When Earth finally had no more blank spaces, the blank space itself became the destination. The first humans in orbit looked down at the entire world at once, something no explorer before them had ever seen. The moon was reached. Probes were sent to every planet in the solar system, and then beyond it. The same impulse that drove the Polynesians into the Pacific without a map sent Voyager 1 into interstellar space. And it's still going. The story of exploration has no last chapter. New Horizons reached Pluto and found a world more complex than anyone expected. Whatever comes next will surprise us just as much.